Alright, welcome back. So I've got an opportunity to do a short video on this M151 A2. So in 1951 they started designing this, the M151. They hadn't even put the M38 in production yet, and they were already designing this one. So the M38 was kind of a stopgap. It was just more of a modern version of, this, I guess, what the CJ2A or the flat fender ones. And then this was already being designed. So 9 years later they finished designing this, and they started producing them in 1960, 1961, right around there. And they use these primarily in Vietnam. This was like the main vehicle that they used in Vietnam. It was replaced later on by the Humvee. In 1984 the M998 Humvee came out and replaced these, but these things were still being used. We were using them a little bit still, and they were being used by militaries around the world. I believe they were still making these things up into the 2000s. And one way you can really quickly identify whether it's a Mutt or whether it's a CJ or not CJ2A but an M38 is the grill on here. Jeep had I don't know if they had the patents on it, but they had the rights to the grill that went vertical. So when this came out, Ford ended up making the first batch of these, and they had to they ended up putting the grill sideways so that they wouldn't get sued by Jeep. So that's one way you can see real quick. You see that grill, you know that it's an M151 Mutt. And then another way is the door opening here. You see how low the door opening comes in here? You can just jump in, jump out. You can slide in, slide out. You didn't have to climb in. You didn't have to, like, I guess it'd be better if you're in battle. If you're in some kind of a skirmish, ducking behind this thing, you can actually just easily just crawl in, start the thing up, get off on your way, and it'd be a lot easier getting up over a high side of a Jeep or something like that. Original ones came out and they had a problem with them rolling over. They had the rear suspension was, I guess it was too floppy, or the way it worked was that these things, they rolled a lot of them. So then when they came out with the A1s, they put a roll cage on the back, like a ROPS rollover protective structure. And when they came out, from what I was told, when they came out with the A2, they didn't necessarily need that rollover protective structure anymore, because they'd fixed the problems with the rear suspension to where these things didn't roll quite so easy. So the M151s, when they went to sell these, they only sold off about 1,000 of them that were left intact, but most of them they cut them in half, and some they even cut in quarters. They cut them up because they said that they weren't going to be safe on the roads, the Highway Safety Administration, whatever, because of the rollover problem that they had. They didn't meet any of the newer requirements that cars were starting to have as far as crash worthiness and stuff like that. So they actually cut them up. It's a unibody, there's no frame. They just cut them straight in half, or sometimes they even cut them in quarters. And you could still buy them like that. You could buy them real cheap, $100. And guys were buying them. They'd buy a couple of them, and then they could weld them back together. They had enough parts to reassemble and make one good one. And then there's companies that came out early on that were making a body for it, or a replacement body you could buy, because you had the engine, you had the running gear and all that stuff that you needed for it. So just a couple of quick facts about this, the M151 Mutt. I think it's one of the best looking Jeeps, military Jeeps that came out. Here's the suspension under the front. See, it's got independent coil spring. You can see it's got the unibody. So there's really no frame to it. It's all just one piece body, and all the suspension just bolts to it. The running gear bolts to it. And as compared to the M38A, they were a little bit longer just by a few inches, and they're a little bit wider. And in the way that they did make this tub design drop in like this, you have a lot more room inside. You can see how wide these seats are. If you've ever been inside of an M38, you can see, the compartments where you sit, it's a lot narrower, a lot less room, to be able to kind of move around inside here. And these, just the little bit of a shape design change that they did, it made them a lot more roomy for what it is. For the size of a Jeep this is, it's got a lot of room inside.